Hello, Faith Friends. It's Kathy with Bodybuilder Ministry. I am here with my two little nephews today. I have Garrison and Sullivan with me, and we are going to be trying something new. We're branching out into some new waters today, and I feel the Lord calling me to do some kind of round table discussion type teachings, and so this is going to be our first one, and we're doing it in the form of a YouTube video to see how this is going to work. And so these are going to be called Candid Conversations with Kids, and the title of this one is going to be Let's Talk Obedience. Okay, so we're going to be talking about obedience, and we're going to see what we can learn from the Bible about obedience, because sometimes we have trouble obeying. Do you ever have trouble obeying?
Yes.
Do you ever have trouble obeying?
Yes.
When do you have trouble obeying? When mom or dad or Aunt Kat gives you something to do, tells you to do something? Is it always? Yeah, because sometimes when you're asked to do something or told to do something,
I don't do it.
you may be, what's that word with a T? Tempted to what?
Temptation.
You may be tempted to do what?
Disobey.
To do it your way, right? Because your way might seem better. Doesn't necessarily mean that your way is wrong, but typically speaking, if the adult in charge has given you some instructions, they probably have thought things through a little better or a little further down the road, and that's usually how it is with God too. So when He asks or tells us to do something, He's kind of already ahead of the game, like He's already thought things all the way through, and so we probably should obey that. So we're all learning how to be what Aunt Kat calls prompt to obey. It's very important that we are prompt to obey, that we hear, and as soon as we hear, we do. And the scriptures do tell us that we are to be not only hearers of the word, but doers of the word also. So today we're going to open up the Bible into the book of 1 Samuel and chapter 15, where we find King Saul has, he's the king at the time, and the prophet Samuel has some instructions for him that come directly from the Lord. And Samuel is telling King Saul what he needs to do. He's giving him some very specific instructions, and I'm going to read just a bit of that for us here real quick, okay? He goes to Saul, King Saul, Samuel does, and he says, "Thus says the Lord of hosts, I will punish Amalek for what he did to Israel, how he ambushed him on the way when he came up from Egypt. Now go and attack Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and do not spare them, but kill both men and women, infant and nursing child, ox and sheep, camel and donkey." So Saul gathered the people together and numbered them in Telem, and 200,000 foot soldiers and 10,000 men of Judah. And Saul came to the city of Amalek and lay in wait in the valley. Then Saul said to the Kenites, "Go, depart, get down from among the Amalekites, lest I destroy you with them. For you showed kindness to all the children of Israel when they came up out of Egypt." So the Kenites departed then from among the Amalekites. And Saul, wait a minute, baby, put that down, okay? Saul attacked the Amalekites from Havilah all the way to Shur, which is east of Egypt. So it kind of sounds like he's doing what he's supposed to do, doesn't it? Okay, he also took Agag, king of the Amalekites, alive and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. But Saul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep, the oxen, the fatlings, the lambs, and all that was good, and were unwilling to utterly destroy them. Now wait a minute. Samuel told Saul to do something. How about if I tell you that it's time to put away all the Playmobil? No, you don't want to do that. But if I were to tell you it's time to put it all away and to separate it into sets, to put the zoo set in this baggie and to put the circus set in this baggie and the, I don't know, what all kind of sets do we have? But anyway, I tell you to put them in different ones, and what if you put them away and they're all jumbled up together? Did you obey me?
No.
Did you put them away?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of obeyed, but then when we go to get them back out, what if we need to get them out for a science project and we need to set up just the zoo set, and it's late at night the night before the project, and I don't know, we can't find just the zoo set because they're all jumbled up together because, did you do what I said when I told you?
No.
So it's not really going to go very
The
well
zoo set
with us
has a
that-
box.
yeah, and we should put it in the box. But, so, do you see my point? Like, Saul, he kind of obeyed, but he didn't obey completely. So, with God, we know that obedience is obedience is obedience. And what does that mean about disobedience? Disobedience is
disobedience, disobedience,
is disobedience, is disobedience, is disobedience. So how about if we delay? Is delayed obedience? If you delay, are you still obeying?
Well, after the delay, you might obey.
But have you obeyed if you were expected to do something promptly?
No.
So delayed obedience is disobedience too? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Oh, so delayed obedience is disobedience too, right?
Yes.
Right. So we need to be sure to be prompt to obey and to follow all the
Instruction.
right, because we know when we follow directions,
No correction.
no corrections. Follow directions, no corrections. That's so important. So let's get back to our story, back to the book here. We want to see what happens. Now, King Saul is going to be, remember, he's the king. But because he only obeyed partially, he is now going to be rejected as king. The Lord is going to send Samuel and to tell him that he is now being rejected as king. Now, who's going to come and be king after King Saul? Do we know who's the next one that's going to be king? The little shepherd boy?
David.
David, that's right. The little shepherd boy David's going to be the next king. So we're going to skip down now to verse 22 because Saul is arguing with Saul is arguing with Samuel. When Samuel goes to find Saul, Saul starts defending himself and saying, he's saying, well, I did this and I did this and I destroyed this and I destroyed this. And Samuel says, but what is this? What then is this? Bleating of the sheep in my ears and the lowing of the oxen which I hear. And Saul said, they have brought them from the Amalekites, for the people spared the best of the sheep and the oxen to sacrifice to the Lord your God, and the rest we have utterly destroyed. So Saul's defending himself. He's like, we destroyed everything else, but we kept the very, very best, and we're going to sacrifice these to the Lord. Now, when we get down to verse 22, this is where the title of our video comes in. Let's talk about obedience. And what is the one thing I always tell you guys? Obedience. What?
Obedience is better than sacrifice.
Obedience is better than what, Sullivan?
Sacrifice.
Obedience is better than sacrifice. So we skip down to verse 22, and we find that Saul is arguing with Samuel, and then Samuel says to him, what does he say right here? Do you want to read it in this version? Samuel replied,
What pleases the Lord more?
burnt offerings and sacrifices
Obeying him.
or obeying him? What does it say?
It's better to obey
Than
to offer a sacrifice.
It's better to obey than to offer a sacrifice. So, if I give you an instruction and you do not obey it, and then you have to be disciplined because you get a consequence because you did not obey, but you don't like the consequence and you don't want the discipline, so maybe you're saying, well, what is something you would offer me? If I take something away from you, or if I punish you or make you do something or that you don't want to do, or you're going to get a spanking or something like that, what's something that you might offer me?
Playmobil.
No, you wouldn't offer me Playmobil. What's something you would
Money.
offer me? Money. You've never offered me money to not be disciplined.
Money.
Shh. What's something that you might offer me? I know sometimes you guys will be like, well, I'll do this, or you can take this, but don't do that. Or I'll do this instead. I'll do all of that if you just don't make me do this. Do you ever do that?
Sometimes.
Yeah, we all do that sometimes. We do. And so that would be a sacrifice. But what would it that I would rather, or mom or dad would rather you have done?
Obey.
When?
all the time.
Wait,
The
no,
second time?
no,
The first time.
Late?
Not late.
On time.
First time? On time?
Not late.
Every time. So when do we need you to obey?
Every
First
time.
time, on
time.
time, every time. And we want to be slow to obey?
Fast.
We want to be prompt to obey. We want to be very, very prompt to obey. Now, I want to read to y'all another part of this right here, okay? In the Bible, I'm reading this out of the big Bible here. It says, when Samuel said, okay, has the Lord as great a delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than to sacrifice, and to heed the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. And right here in this version, it says, refusing to obey him is as sinful as using what?
Evil magic.
Evil magic, that's what it says. And stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry, because you have rejected the word of the Lord. He also has rejected you then from being king. That's what Samuel said to King Saul there. And so let's go to this NIRV version over here, where it says, it is better to do what he says than to offer the fat of rams. And what does this say in verse 23, Garrison? What does this say?
Refusing to obey him is as sinful as using evil magic.
Being
Proud is as evil as worshiping statues of gods.
Oh, and what does this say, Sullivan, right here? You have,
Refuse to do what the Lord told you to do.
so
He has refused to have you as king.
wow. So the Lord refused Saul as king, and at that point, his hand was lifted from Saul, and he later on goes and tells Samuel to go and anoint who as the next king?
David.
Little King David, who was just a shepherd boy at the time, out in the field watching the sheep. And so what do you think that means for us? We understand we want to obey when? First time?
First time, on time, every time.
And we want to be, how do we want to obey? Promptly. We want to be prompt to obey. We want to be prompt to obey. And who is it that we're obeying?
Jesus.
Yes.
And whoever really told us to do something.
Whoever it is that the Lord has placed at that time in authority over us. So it might be the person who watches you during the day. It might be at home, it's going to be your
Mom or Dad.
and at school it's going to be your
Teacher.
and at church it's going to be your
Sunday school teacher.
right. And so, and out on the road, out in the world, it's going to be the law and everything. We have to obey the law of the land and everything, and obey all of the laws of the land, right? So if I were to get stopped by a police officer for doing something wrong, and he says license and registration, and I don't want to give him my license and registration, and instead I hand him my credit card and say, well, here, go get yourself a McDonald's coffee or something like that. He doesn't want that, does he? And that's not what he's expecting. And so am I going to get in pretty much bigger trouble than what I was already in for whatever it was that he pulled me over for, right? Yeah. And so no sacrifices. We don't want sacrifices. We want to be prompt to obey, willing to obey. Now, how is it that can actually happen for us? Because our hearts have to be ready. Our hearts have to be willing, right? So we should spend time alone with who?
God.
Doing what? Talking to him in
Praying.
and reading his
Bible.
word and hiding it in our hearts so that we won't sin against him. And when these times come, we will be ready and willing. He can help us to be prompt to obey so that we follow all of his instructions and it goes well with us, right? Good, very good. So this has been our very first Candid Conversations with Kids. We did Let's Talk About, what did we talk about today? Obedience. We hope you have enjoyed it. And we do have a couple of other topics that we plan to do. Roundtable conversation like this with the kids again another time soon. And so from Bodybuilder Ministry, we're going to sign off for now. So we want to remind you, every day you get to choose to what?
Be encouraged.
And know that.
You are loved.
That's right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching.